Alright y'all, here's a update on the 95 GT. Work I've done to it. You can see I did the high school thing. Bought some wheels for it. It actually came down to what those, either trying to find like a 245/50 R16 or just trying to find some new wheels. And I actually tried to find something with just some alright tires, couldn't find nothing. Found those wheels for 200 bucks. The tires were shot on them. I didn't even trust putting it on the car to drive the car to the tire shop. So, and just put some of these on there. Went with the 245/45 R17s, which even in the rear, it still needs a wider wheel and wider tire. But better than the 16s anyway. Let's see. I replaced the coolant reservoir, which I went with a Dorman one. You do have to reuse your low coolant. It did come with a new hose, but it was actually a damn like inch and a half short, so I had to use the old one. Lucky it was in still all right shape. While I had that removed, remove the smog pump, which you do have to do a little bit of clearancing on. I think it's just on the 94s and up. I don't think Fox buys it matters. It's made to either fit both. So, and change the belt out, which that fixed the belt squill. While the car was jacked up, changed the O2 sensors, and there was also a nice little, which the O2 sensors still had 4 on them. And there was a nice little pine straw nest on the driver's side transmission close to the exhaust. That would have been a nice little fire for driving it and let really car get warmed up and that kind of thing. Changed the plugs out, which I'm not sure how it's going to focus. I got so much damn sun glare. There we are. Which these had just some motor crafts. I replaced them with some NGK like 3207s, I think. And also replaced the PCV valve, pulled it out, and there's a rubber grommet you got to pull out, and then below it is a crankcase breather, and that's what this one looked like. Which it had a top screw, but you got to use a pair of pliers. It's pretty tight getting in there. And so this car probably had not been maintained very much, other than maybe plugs every once in a while, maybe a fuel filter and oil changes. That's about it. And the car had an out-of-state title, Mississippi title. I'm in Florida, and so I can either fill out a form and have a sheriff's deputy verify the VIN number, then take that up there and then get the title transfer, get the car legal, or I can just drive the car up to the tax collector, which is our DMV, and have them verify it, which was a good excuse for a test run. And so I'm like, well, I'll just do that. Got insurance on the car, and I thought it had that delay going from third to fourth or overdrive. It was actually first to second. I took off with it, and it just wound up about like 4,000 RPMs. I'm like, man, is this thing ever going to shift? And finally it did. I'm like, thank God. Got to a stop sign, and I actually tried to shift down into first and just manually upshift it, see if that would work. Still didn't seem to work, and so I just ended up putting it in drive. Went to another stop sign, took off from it, and it seemed fine after that. It didn't have a delay, so I'm like, okay. And got the car legal. That was no problem. And on the way back, I gassed the car up, which it didn't fix the gas gauge either. That doesn't work. And also I replaced those temp sensors. That didn't fix the temp gauge either. And also the check engine light did come on, like both times coming up to the tax collector and back. And I scanned it. It said it was running lean. I'm like, okay, well, that's great. It's doing the opposite of what it was doing before. So I'm like, well, the car's legal. I'll just drive it to my house, because I got a dirt road I can drive on if I need to test it. It's more rural anyway. I want to take it out on the road. And the following day, it was still at my dad's house. I opted to put this in there, which I'm not much on snake oil stuff. I put that in there and just drove around my dad's backyard for a couple minutes, parked it, and then the next day I had time for my wife can follow me back home in case something happened with the car, and took off with it. And of course the transmission was cold like it was that day I drove to the tax collector, and it was fine. No delay in first to second, but it does shift hard into overdrive, and I don't think the converter's locking up, to tell you the truth. So I do have a rebuilt AODE, or Craigslist rebuilt one I bought for my 94 years ago. It was an automatic car when I bought it, and I'm like, oh, it's supposed to have a shift kit, this, that, and the other. I'll put that in there. But that car ended up developing a stall issue where you'd be driving it, it would just go dead on you, which with automatic, that sucks. So you got to pull off, put it in park, crank it back up. And of course, looking back now, I even tried to take it to the shop. They'd like, oh, it's the EGR. That's the only thing, kind of code stuff coming up. Most likely it was probably the pickup and distributor, which usually when those go bad, it'll leave you stranded. The car would crank up every time. Whenever it would cut out and put it back in park, it would crank back up. I just didn't get it. But looking back now, it's probably the pickup and distributor. So I ended up converting that car to a 5-speed, which was the opposite of what I wanted to do. And so I still have that rebuilt AODE. I could always swap into this car if I need to, but we'll see. Now, when I got back here, because I said it was running lean, I'm like, I don't know what the hell the deal was with this. I done plugged off like every extra vacuum line. Of course, these were on like the smog stuff, those smog line stuff, I removed that, and there was 1 or 2 back here. I couldn't see nothing on the intake that needed to be plugged off before, or like on the engine itself. So I'm like, well, let me take the mass there out and take it off from the plastic housing, give it a more thorough cleaning. Did that. There's those little fine pieces of like metal wire there, like the little U-shaped pieces. Did that, which I disconnect the battery as well, which clears the codes, which by scanner I can clear it, but if you're messing with electrical, just go ahead and disconnect the battery anyway. Did that, took the car for a test run, and no check engine light. Usually it would pop up after about a minute or so. Turned the car off, cranked it back up, took off again. Check engine light did come back on for about a minute and then came back off. Usually it would stay on before. I scanned it and all it did was say the smog pump stuff was inactive. So as far as I know, the lean conditions is taken care of. I did pull one of the plugs as well when it was said it was doing that. It was white, so. But I'm gonna take it on some more test runs or test drives, and then maybe pull one of the plugs again and then see what it looks like. But I did pick up some more, because let me see if you can see it. It's got a glare here. You can see the groove on them rotors. I do have a cold and a cough, so hear me sniffling, I apologize. I did pick up some cheapest rotors I can get and closed out. They were like 15 bucks for the fronts, like 13 for the rear, which from Rock Auto, they're usually like 40 bucks or so for like the nicer, like our like power stop stuff. But even with shipping, all total, it was like 165 bucks. I priced it out from like O'Reilly's. It would have been like 430 bucks. Of course, that would have been probably better brand rotors and something similar to the, I think they're ceramic, yeah. Ceramic brake pads from Callahan. I don't know if anyone got that joke, but this is my old 94. You can see it. That one's kind of out of focus. That's back when you had to use a disposable camera, which those seats never did clean up. I ended up swapping to black cloth. But that's that car. You can see that's what I've been using to. I had that scanner for years because it works for OBD too, and for these older types. That's what this one takes. So it also has one for a Chrysler, which I've never owned. So it's been a lifesaver with that damn thing. Let me get it cranked up for y'all. Which also, I don't know if I mentioned, I did replace the belt, and it fixed the belt squeal too. I can't remember if I did mention that in the video, the first of the video. Got some, if you heard in the video, hunters popping off. I'd already cranked the car up prior. The car also had some chrome tips they had put on it. They were ugly. I do need to clean those up. Like I mentioned, they put Flowmaster mufflers, but they basically cut the exhaust. I don't know if I'm able to get underneath there. Probably not. They cut it off from the front cap back, and then just welded a full piece of pipe to the muffler. So I was going to change the transmission out. You have to cut the exhaust. car does leak some oil too. I think it's on the front of the engine. Of course, I think the rear main still leaks. They all do. These old push rod Fords, it's just gonna happen. Now, anytime I did bought the transmission out, I always try to replace the rear main anyway, just as be safe. But next plans for, of course, are do the brakes, take care of that, and it does need some suspension work, struts and shocks, and needs an alignment as well. I don't plan on driving it too much with the alignment being bad. Won't heat the tires up or anything. But yeah, that's it for now. It'll be a little while before I do another update on it, but y'all take it easy.